We're live from the Flint Cultural Center Academy. I'm joined today by a Flint icon, Flint Central High School graduate, Purdue University, a man who needs no introduction, Mr. Joe Eufinger is here. Before I start asking Coach questions, I have to give a really quick shout out. This was an indicator that this is going to be a great weekend. And this, honest to God, happened. I promise you on my father's name and on my son's name, this really did happen yesterday. I'm a driver, and I was down south in South Carolina. I was coming upwards, and I stopped in a town called Perrysburg, Ohio. William Hill, who some of us know here, we used to call Scotty, I ran into him in Perrysburg, Ohio, when he was on his way to Cleveland. What are the odds of that happening? He's not only a classmate of mine at Flint Central High School, but we're born on the same day. So that was an indicator that this is going to be a good weekend. So shout out to Will. So, Coach, I just want to, the last time that I see you, you had just had kneecap replacement surgery. And I think you were getting ready to have the other one done.
Right.
So how are your knees feeling, and how is your overall health?
My overall health is pretty good. My knees are great. My wife got me a Fitbit, so now I check the number of steps that I'm taking. I'm doing 5 miles a day. I see James Hurd is here, and he's looking lean and mean, and Bob Bahalik and Sam Paraskis and Otha Hill. So coaching staff is all looking pretty good. I think we're ready to get back on the field.
Mance looks like he could play too. He looks younger than me and my teammates. He's
Griffin in the back looks more like a lineman now. But
oh, well, Coach, you grew up in Flint. Tell us a little bit about your childhood, how it was growing up in Flint back in those days, in the 50s and 60s, and tell us about your family situation back then.
Okay, well, my dad worked for Sears Roebuck. I was born in Milwaukee, and that's his hometown. And, he fought in World War II and came back, and that was 1945. And apparently my mother was happy to see him because I was born 9 months later. And so he worked in Milwaukee and then down in Champaign-Urbana, actually. And he got a chance at a promotion to the Sears store here in Flint. And so we moved here in 1950. So I was 5 years old when I came to Flint, and we lived over on near Mott Park when there was actually a golf course there, and it was a great place to grow up. I went to Longfellow. I used to tell my students that I spent 10 years at Longfellow, which they thought explained a lot about me because it was a 2-year middle school when they were there. And but I was there from kindergarten through 9th grade, and it was a great experience. I remember older people would remember Don Gavilio. He was a principal at Northern and I think at Northwestern for a while. Well, he was my basketball coach. Every sport over there. It was a junior high thing, so they coached everything, and. So we had interesting experiences together, winning and losing a lot of games. I think one of the funniest stories to me was we had an 8th grade. Back then you had a 7th grade team, an 8th grade team, a 9A and a 9B basketball team. And in 8th grade, we won one game. And that was because I nailed an overtime shot against McKinley, so it probably gave some style back, and whatever. So anyway, our last game of the year was up at Bryant, and Bryant killed us. And I was walking off the court behind Don Gavilio and the coach from Bryant as they were kind of commiserating, like coaches will after a game. And I remember Don saying to the Bryant coach, he says, I don't remember the guy's name. He says the guy's name, and he says, Coach, do you believe that I got to make 2 teams out of this crap for next year? And but Don was no fool. He loaded up his B team with his best players and put the bad players like me on the A team. So we got killed on the A team, but he won the B team championship. So Don knew how to game the system way back then. But it was a great experience growing up in Flint. There were all kinds of things going on. We were playing softball. We were playing baseball. We were playing basketball. We had mock football. All kinds of things. And, when you got hungry, you went downtown to Chickasaw or the Coney Islands or to the Kresge's and got the donuts that came hot off the machine. They were instant death, but they were awfully good. And so that was a great time. And then had the opportunity to go to Central. And let me back up a little bit, since this is about athletics too. Like I say, we came to Flint in 1950, and we had no idea about the heritage of sports in this town. But one of the guys that my dad worked with at Sears was a Northern grad, and so he started taking us to the Thanksgiving Day game. And the one there were a couple that I saw when I was really, and I don't particularly remember them, but the one that really turned me on to Central, and Lawler, this is for you, 1958, Central beat Northern 51-0. And I was in the stands watching that, and it really caught my eye. And I said, man, I really want to play for Central. I want to go there. And so had the opportunity then to finally attend Central High School. Had 3 years there. Bob Leach was my coach. We, and we're going to talk a little bit later probably about Thanksgiving.
Absolutely.
And we didn't do so well against Northern. That's again for the Viking in the crowd. When I was a sophomore and when I was a junior, in fact, there was a game, they upset us. A guy, they had a quarterback, backup guy, Jerry Spagnoli, who came in and lit the place up. I don't think he could even see the receivers. I think the guy was blind, but he hit a couple of good passes early on, and they hadn't had a very good year, but we made their year by letting them beat us. But our senior year, we beat them 6-0 or 7-0, something like that. It was a great defensive battle, and turkey always tastes better when you beat Northern on Thanksgiving, and it doesn't taste anything at all when you lose.
Now, did you play organized football before you got to Central, or did you do like I did and just start playing organized football when you started high school?
No, we had the Mott Foundation program, and so we would play, we practiced, and it was one of those things back in that day. The coaches from the high schools coached or helped manage the coaching of the teams, and they had their players help out coaching. Coaching the young kids. So we had a regular program on the weekends, and so we had organized football, and it was again, back in the day, Flint was quite a place, and we were one of the leaders athletically in terms of a developmental program at that time, and so we had been on the field and understood a little bit about what was going on by the time we got to high school.
Okay, now you have a classmate that was one of my mentors, somebody that worked with me a lot when I was in school, Jewel Baxter.
Yes.
Could you talk about Jewel Baxter and what he was like in school and on the field?
Well, Jewel was one of our running backs. He and I graduated at the same time, and we had Jewel Diamond Baxter and Sher Moore Wallace were our two running backs, and Marvin Mabry was the fullback. And they were great guys. They really were outstanding. And later on, one of Jewel's sons played for me as a linebacker. So that was a great moment.
Hank Baxter?
Yes.
That was my best friend in high school.
Is that right?
He was my closest high school friend.
Yeah, he was a great guy.
Yeah. Now, I've heard you talk over the years about the call that you got that changed your life forever. Tell us about the call.
Okay.
Phone call, not a bad call.
Yeah. There were a few bad calls, a couple good ones, but this phone call came from a guy who was he was one of the three main mentors in my life, a gentleman by the name of Dean Ludwig. And when I came to Central, Dean Ludwig was the athletic trainer. He was the wrestling coach, and he was the center and linebacker coach for the football team. So I got to know him as a sophomore. And, I mean, this guy, he was all-state in Ohio in football, basketball, and baseball. So he's a pretty good athlete.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, he went to the University of Michigan as a linebacker, broke his neck twice, and so he switched to wrestling. I don't know how that figured out, but he became the wrestling coach at Central. He was one of the toughest guys I've ever been around, and just a great person in my life. Well, anyway, so I remember when I got my scholarship to Purdue. I remember Dean coming over to the house and saying, hey, look, you're going to college now. It's a whole different game. We better go in the side yard. And Bob Hollick would remember this from back in the day. Dean ran these things called blood drills. And they were called blood drills for a reason, because occasionally somebody ended up bleeding and it wasn't Dean. But anyway, so he takes me in the side yard. He says, now we got to get serious about this. And he knocked me around the side yard for half an hour, showing me what the game was going to be like in the Big Ten. So I really appreciated that after I got the bruises cleaned up. And so I went on to college, and, I didn't have an all-star career there by any stretch, but I did have a great experience. And so I'm at the point of graduating in '67 and trying to figure out what to do with my life. And that's when I got the call. Dean said, I've got a paid assistant job in wrestling. We have an opening in the history department, and maybe there'll be a slot in football. Are you interested? I said, I absolutely am. And so I came up and met with Dean and the principal, and we just kind of walked around and talked around for an hour, and after it was done, they said, well, you got a job. And I'm sure hiring doesn't go like that much anymore, but so that's what got me started. So I was gone for 4 years, came back in '67 as an assistant in wrestling, and I got a JV spot in football, and started from there.
Now, coaching the Thanksgiving Day games, what were those games like when you were coaching? Well, you coached the first Thanksgiving. No, your first year as coach, you coached the last.
Yes,
Thanksgiving Day game.
My first year as a head coach was the last year for Thanksgiving, and so we had a few other ones prior to that.
We won that game, Chuck, by the way. Okay.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
And we lost the first one. That was the last year. That was the year I'm sorry, Jesse, Ascencio, I apparently not accurately outed him as the guy who decided to put the sod down at Abbott Stadium in '67. He's just a guy who was told to put the sod down that didn't quite take. And the field ended up it looked beautiful the first couple, 3 games. And then we had a week. We played on a Thursday. It rained that day. Somebody else played there Friday. It rained that day. Somebody else played there Saturday. It rained that day. Somebody else played there Sunday, and it rained that day. We had no field left by the time that was done. That was about 4 weeks into the season. So when we get to the Thanksgiving Day game, they call it the Mud Bowl for a reason. They could have called it the Swamp Bowl. It was terrible. We had a guy on the opening kickoff who received the kickoff, ran it up the middle of the field, got hit, went down face down, and came off the sideline and said he thought he was going to drown because his head was down in this mud and there's a pile of people on him and they wouldn't get off. And but he survived. We didn't. Northern beat us 6-2.
6-2.
6-2.
So you got a safety that is. Somebody got.
Well, it was. I'll tell you, the winning play. William Wallace, who was one of the fastest guys. Later on that year, they had a dual track meet behind Central, and there was a guy who broke 10 flat and did not place because we had Herb Washington and William Wallace, and I forget who the other two were right offhand, but they were outstanding. It was the best 100-yard dash at that time I ever saw. Well, William Wallace is running, so we know he's fast, right? It took him about 40 seconds to run a sweep from the midfield to the goal line because he was walking through the slot, but everybody behind him was even slower. So they beat us 6-2. That was the first experience. The next year we had the turf down, and it went on from there. And by the time we got to 1976, they started the state playoffs. And in fact, I think they started that year. And so the problem with the timing of the Thanksgiving Day game and the playoffs was that we would have had to choose to either be in the playoffs or have that game. So it was time for it to go. So I got the opportunity to be the coach for the last Thanksgiving Day game. And it was, we had a better record than Northern going in, but, they always say, and it's kind of a cliche, but they become cliches because they're true sometimes. You throw the records out when rivals like that play.
We used to say that in our Ohio State, Michigan rivalry.
Yeah.
We used to say that.
Right, yeah. Now we just get thrown.
Yeah.
But the game ended regulation 0-0, but they had an overtime situation then. So we go in, and it just so happened this morning I had breakfast with a couple of players that were kind of involved in that game, and they're here right now. So the quarterback is Frank Nagy, and receiver and defensive back David Gibson. And there was another guy, if you're a Central guy, you remember Len Macy in the training room.
Oh, yeah.
And he plays a role in this too. So, like all games in Flint, it happened a whole long time ago, but we keep arguing about what really happened. And so it's nothing. We go into overtime, and we have the ball first. And Sam's calling the plays, and he's marginally successful. So we get down to the goal line. We're short of the line, and our fleet-footed quarterback, Frank Nagy, becomes the guy who tries to score. And the official says he scored. So he scored, right? There's no replay. They can't check it. The hands went up, it's a score, right?
Okay, yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah.
So we're ahead 6-0. Now, there are a few people from Northern who think maybe he didn't score, but the hands went up. So end of story. We know for a fact that we kicked the extra point, so we're ahead 7-0. Then Hollick's defense takes over and lets them score. So it's 7-6. Yeah. My defensive line might have something to do with that. But anyway, so it's 7-6. So now their question is, do you go for one or do you go for two? Well, they line up in a extra point formation. But the ever alert David Gibson is paying attention, and he sees a couple of things that I don't remember all the details, David, even though he told me 20 times. But the essence of the thing is they got somebody in who isn't normally there, and they have a guy in who is very tall, and David's twin brother, Dale, is defending that guy, and there's like a foot difference in height at least. And so David smells a rat, thank goodness. And they fake the kick and they throw a pass. And David knocks it down. So that becomes the last play ever on Thanksgiving, so that Central wins the last Thanksgiving Day game ever. Well, how does Len Macy fit into this thing? Well, David had hurt his little finger or something, and like a wimpy defensive back, he goes to Macy and says, "Look, I got this little owie. What can we do about it?" And so Macy wraps, and as I understood it, wrapped the thumb and the fingers together so that they wouldn't hyperextend. So there's a piece of tape that's running across his fingers right here. And so when David went up to knock the ball down, he didn't hit it with his hand. It got caught on the tape, and it's actually kind of almost glued to his hand. And he's afraid the official is going to see something wrong with that, so he's trying to pull the ball up. Anyway, it all worked out to our advantage, and we won 7-6.
Wow.
Yeah.
Do you still have the itch to coach?
You know, when I turn the TV on, yeah. Sometimes when I see things, yeah. But when it's 98 degrees out in August, no. I'd rather be on the golf course.
The reason why I asked that, because I remember it was right after you retired from coaching. Randy, Scott, and I, we met you up at Atwood Stadium. I think we went to Luigi's first and then went to Atwood Stadium. I remember we're sitting together. I know Andre and Fred and Beasley were on the coaching staff. And right before halftime, you made sure that you ran down there real quick because you saw something on there.
Yeah.
You still do that?
I don't run anywhere anymore. But no, I still, you see things and, you know, it frustrates you and you wonder, but no, I don't try to interject anything to any coaches anymore because they're all bigger, younger than me.
Do you remember when Randy and I showed up to the Michigan High School Football Coaches Hall
Yes,
in Ann Arbor?
Yes, I do.
That was I talk about that all the time. Just hearing your voice up there, and especially what you said about Randy, that was very touching. Could you talk about Randy for a second and what he meant to your coaching career?
Yeah, I will. And Randy is representative of a lot of guys, most of whom ended up being centers, because nobody wants to be center. Everybody wants to be the quarterback or whatever. So a lot of times it's a guy who is pretty selfless and hardworking and just wants to do the best they can. And, you know, of course, across your career, you run into a lot of great athletes. You mentioned Andre Weathers, Mike Fordham is here, Vance Broom. You know, there are a lot of, if I didn't mention your name, doesn't mean you're not great. But anyway, you have those kind of guys, and it's obvious why they're playing, and you know, because they're good, and it's just, you know, it comes easy to them. And then there are guys like Randy, and it didn't come easy for Randy. And a lot of the guys where it doesn't come easy might decide just forget it.
Sure.
And so when Randy came out as a freshman, I guess we would just say he may not have been the greatest athlete at that particular point in time.
Well, he'll be the first to admit that too.
Yeah, and his playing time was extremely limited as a freshman. But he came back out as a sophomore, and he's on the JVs, and his time is still quite limited. He might have got a few plays in, but not much. And, you know, and that's an awful lot of work to just stand on the sideline for 2 years. But we brought him up to the varsity as a junior. And, you know, you start to see some changes. I mean, he's been in the weight room. He's working out. He's trying. And honestly, you know, in some ways, you know, if we're running our offense, we want it to work in practice. You know, you want to see things succeed. And sometimes, you know, you're sort of happy that the guys who are playing on the demo offense or the demo defense do something well. But on the other hand, it kind of upsets you too, because they're getting in the way of you wanting to feel like you're ready for a game. Well, Randy started being a problem because he was challenging the starters. And so, you know, there's some real growth there. And so the season ends. And at that point, you know, you got to start making your decisions about what's going to happen for the next year. And so we have a 6-hour gym class, and we're lifting and we're running plays and so on. And Randy's there, and you know, it's not rocket science on my part. The other centers had graduated, so Randy became the center. And I said, well, you know what? It's his job to lose. And the thing is, he never lost it. And so he went through that whole thing in the winter, the spring, the summer. We start fall practice. You put the pads on. That's when reality hits. And he started hitting people. Yeah. And he was doing a job. Oh, hey, okay, we'll leave it the way it is, and we'll see how it goes. And he starts the first game, and we win that one. And the second game, we win that one. And the bottom line is, he started the whole season. We had the only undefeated season in our history. He started every offensive play because he snapped the ball and then went after somebody. So,
and he scored a touchdown that year. Scored a touchdown.
Probably had an interesting dance after that.
Now, did Fred muff the snap or, okay, Fred muffed the snap. He messed it up?
That was perfect.
Okay,
Yeah.
Fred Jackson messed it up. Okay,
He was pulling out early, yeah.
Yeah,
Fred.
pulling out early.
Yeah, yeah.
Now, I lived in Arizona for about 6 or 8 months, and I worked at Ironwood High School, what's called in Glendale.
Okay.
And obviously I associated with a lot of the jocks, talk about sports and all that stuff. I've actually told that Randy Scott story to some of the football players. It's more of like a not giving up kind of
Right.
story, And, I have told that story to people in Arizona. Now, there was a playoff game in '84. Now, you guys won a playoff game that year in '84. Who did you beat?
We beat Midland High School.
And then Ann Arbor, was it
Huron.
Pioneer or Huron?
Pioneer,
Okay,
Pioneer.
Now, the guys, I'm a part of a group, and we talk about that game a lot. The older guys talk about it. And, first of all, this group that I'm telling you I'm a part of, it's a massive part of it. Basically, a lot of people here are part of it. It's the greatest group that I'm a part of, okay? I mean, I'm not trying to shortchange my neighborhood friends that I grew up with. We get together once a year. But our football group that I'm a part of is the greatest group. Now, they talk about that game a lot, Ann Arbor Pioneer. Some kind of robbery possibly at the end. Could you talk about that Ann Arbor Pioneer game?
Yeah.
Uh-oh.
Well, first off, it was an interesting thing. We had a player who was academically ineligible going into the playoffs or just prior to, and we didn't play. Ann Arbor Pioneer had a receiver who was academically ineligible, and they went to the school board and whined, and they made some sort of special dispensation.
Oh, I didn't know that.
And the guy played. And there was again, the hands went up, there's no replay, they called a touchdown. We lost the game 14-7. There's a pass that the guy caught on the one, fumbled into the end zone, and we recovered. That's a touchback, our ball going the other way.
Yeah.
Except the official that was 20 yards behind the play called a touchdown. So that's that.
And I'm kind of sorry I asked that question. I didn't really know.
Yeah, I was having a good day till.
I'm very, very sorry. Now, in '93, the year we went 9-0, we started off the season 11-0. I don't like to use injuries as an excuse because that's part of the game. Okay, there's going to be injuries. I honestly feel in my heart that if Stan Brown wasn't injured the entire season, Clayton doesn't blow his knee out, Clayton Burnett doesn't blow his knee out,
Right.
ACL injury. I just don't see how we could have been stopped by anybody. Wesley and John Glenn, I tip my hat to them. And, mention Randy Scott again. He normally doesn't like to talk about that game because he really gets sensitive about that game. But like I said, I tip my hat to them. They won fair and square. They were good sportsmanship. We wished them well because we really wanted to crack at Dearborn Fortson because of what we used to do in an exhibition play every year with those Michigan helmets they wore and the Michigan jerseys. And I honestly still, November 20th, 1993, still kind of hard for a lot of us to talk about because we thought we were the best, and I don't want to say disappointed in ourselves, but it does hurt us that we weren't able to bring home a state title for you that you deserved. So I just wanted to say that about, my guys.
Well, first
I'm
off,
basically apologizing for coming up
you don't
short.
have to apologize for anything, and any state championship wasn't for me or any other coach. It was for the guys on the team. And you talk about your group. Well, we have a bunch of coaches who get together on a fairly regular basis, and you'd be amazed how much time we spend doing the same thing you guys do, rehashing it, from our perspective. And that game was a circumstance where, we had some defensive line issues. We had D'Angelo Mitchell. I really feel in the very first part of that game, he went up for a pass in the end zone, got hit in the ribs, and that changed his game. we made a defensive adjustment, interestingly enough, in the game after they moved the ball. The first time they had it, they took it right down, and well, it was a long drive. But they converted a lot of third downs, and we finally realized that we had a kind of a matchup issue. Our two defensive ends were Nate Braswell and Gaddis, and we ended up switching them, and we went bigger on bigger, and that neutralized. They didn't move the ball the rest of the game. So in Arthur Hill up at their place, and they went on to win the state championship as well. And that was a back and forth game, and we were just talking about this morning, and we're having a hard time stopping Melvin Wright. Is that the right name?
Marvin, yeah.
Marvin from Arthur Hill, and they couldn't stop us. And Sam was saying this morning, he said we had this, we're moving the ball, and he said, toward the end of the game to take the lead, and he's so sure we're going to score. He says to me, should I hold off or should I score? I'm going score, which was a mistake because we scored and then they scored right back on us. But then we had the ball and we're moving back down, and we are moving it. And we had a running back that we're 1st and 10 on the 15 going in with less than a minute to go, or into the last minute and a half. And on first down, he runs for like 9 yards, maybe even a first down, fumbles the ball, and they have it. And I was telling the guys this morning that right then, they're going to run out the clock, right? So he runs, we hit him, ball comes out, hits the ground, bounces right up and back onto his chest. If we recover that, we probably score and win. So there, sometimes it just doesn't work out.
Here's a little something you didn't know about when we get together. Now, when you guys get together, do you guys meet for breakfast or coffee, or how do you guys do your?
It's right now. We probably have Metamucil or something. I don't know. Yeah, it's coffee, it's golf, or fishing if it's holic, and or lying about fishing if it's holic.
We're karaoke guys. We get together for karaoke. Yes, I sing karaoke. Randy sings. Andre Weathers sings karaoke. I mean, when I say sings karaoke, I'm talking about like Daryl Hall and John Oates type karaoke. We sing that kind of stuff. Get together, have a good time.
That's kind of scary.
And it's an environment just like this. Nice and control, everybody getting along. I mean, we do have Tyvon love there. Tyvon's going to be Tyvon, which is good though. But I love getting together with these guys. It's guys like them and guys like people that are here makes me happy that I moved back to Flint when I was in Arizona. Although I did have a good experience in Arizona. Now, there's a topic I wanted to talk about, and I may have a few questions about this because I'm a big animal guy. We want to know the details about the bear that you wrestled. Now, hold on. What I mean by that, obviously we know that you pinned the bear because you can't see that for a second. I don't know, most of you probably seen this, but this is Mr. Eufinger putting the black bear down back in 1971, I believe. 1971. And we know that you pinned the bear, but the question I have is where did this take place? Why? I'm afraid of animals. Dan, am I afraid of wild animals?
Yes.
Coach, I am definitely afraid of wild animals. Why would you wrestle a bear? Okay, this is before you knew you were going to pin. Okay, what made you think that you could pin a black bear in a wrestling match?
I didn't know that I could or couldn't. I didn't know that I wanted to. In fact, I'm pretty sure I didn't want to. I was a wrestling coach in '71, and back in that time, we had a homeroom period after second hour. And so you take attendance, listen to the announcements, and then talk. And I had some wrestlers and football players that were in my class. And back when they used to have the IMA building where we used to play basketball, and all the old IMA, they had, it was springtime, and they had a sport and boat show there. And so, they're trying to sell all that stuff for summertime thing. And they had Tuffy Truesdale was the guy who had this. Is Victor the wrestling bear?
I heard of that there.
Yeah,
That's
Victor. That's Victor. Yeah, he's like 7 feet tall, 475 pounds.
Okay.
And so these guys would come into my class, and apparently they spent every night down there watching Victor take on these people. And because a couple of them were wrestlers, and so we'd sit there and I'd say, well, what happened last night? I'd say, well, what did this guy try? What did he do? He said, well, he did this, this, and this. What did the bear do? He said, well, the bear kind of whacked him on the head, knocked him down, sit on him, and drink a pot. Okay, well, I wouldn't do that. All right, so this goes on, and then they say to me, a couple days into it, they said, you should go wrestle a bear. I'm not going to wrestle any bear. I'm like you. I'm smart enough to be scared of them. Well, somewhere along the line in the week, I made the mistake of saying, I wouldn't do that for free. I'd have to get at least $50. So they start taking pledges. And this is one of the things I learned about pledging. Pledging is a lie. Because 60% of the people who pledge will never actually come through on the pledge. It's kind of like New Year's resolutions. So anyway, it goes on during the course of the week, and they get to homeroom on Friday. And so I said, how much money you got on the pledge? And only about $30. So well, I guess I don't have to do this. I'm feeling pretty good. 5th hour, Dick Dennis was his name. Dick Dennis was our assistant principal. And, he went on to coach at Northern, so you knew he was an untrustworthy kind of guy. And he comes on the PA, and he says, special announcement. Coach Eufinger is going to wrestle Victor the Wrestling Bear tonight at the IMA. I said, what the hell? And so now I'm thinking kids are going to go down and pay a couple bucks to get in. I better show up. Now, the bear was nothing compared to what I had to do next, which was go home and tell my wife that we were going to the boat show because I'm going to wrestle a bear.
Honey, I'm wrestling a bear.
So we go down there, and in the picture, all these are Central kids that are behind there. So now I got to wrestle bear. So I'm watching this, a couple of people wrestle a bear, and I don't honestly know what happened, other than apparently I outsmarted the bear, because you're not going to out physical, right?
Right.
So I go out, and and Tuffy's happy because there's a big crowd because all the kids are there. And so I get in there with the bear, and I think I did some kind of, this is what I remember, which is probably a lot. Maybe he just tripped over himself. But I did a kind of a leg whip, and he went down, and I got on top of him. And
so you tripped him?
I tripped him.
Okay.
I tricked him. I outsmarted him.
Okay.
He pulled a Cobra Kai on him. Sweep the leg.
Sweep the leg. And then I got him down there. And he's on his back. Now, the problem is you got to pin the bear. Well, you can't pin a bear because the shoulders are round. There's no way you get them both down unless you had a Bowie knife. And so I got him down there, and that, and we grapple around, and I actually, I listened to your podcast with Fordham, and he made some reference to me being hairy, which is true.
I know he did.
Yeah, and which is all right. And I think the bear might have,
That bear may have been hairy.
may have been hairy, but
Slightly.
I think he liked me. Yeah, because he kind of started licking my face. And but anyway, so we grapple around, accomplishing nothing except people are kind of happy. So Tuffy finally taps my shoulder, and I get off. So I won, right? I was supposed to get $100 from Tuffy, $50 from the kids, right?
Yeah.
That's that's $150. I did that math in my head. Tuffy says, "Listen, this is good. Come back in a minute." Now I'm geeked because I'm afraid that right. Yeah. So they let a couple other people wrestle him, and then he gets him set up. And this, it was a mat that's probably 10 foot square. So and Tuffy had a chain, and he get him stood up. So he gets the bear stood up to his 7 feet height. And I'm on the other side. And this is like a Hollick or a Ludwig blood draw now. I'm gonna rack that bear. So the bear is there, and I come across and I hit him. I get my head. Boom! No, I got my chest. My chin is right here, and I'm gonna knock him on his back, right? That bear goes, it did not move an eighth of an inch. So now I'm in here. Now what am I going to do? And so we kind of grappled, and he's 475 and I'm not. So he's going to win this one. And we kind of went down to the mat and rolled around for a little bit. He didn't pin me. He didn't do anything. I didn't pin him in that second round. We had some fun. And then Tuffy said, hey, get out of here. And so I left.
Yeah.
I didn't get $100 from Tuffy. I got $18 from the kids. So I took my wife to Angelo's and we had to go home.
All these years, I didn't know that was Victor. Only because I've watched videos online from Victor the bear from back then.
Yeah.
That was a traveling bear.
Yeah.
This bear used to do exhibitions with like professional wrestlers and people and stuff.
And me.
And coach. But I've never, but they don't pin Victor. Victor don't allow them to pin them. Now here's a question I've always wanted to ask you. How can you put in perspective on what animal strength feels like? And the reason why I ask that is because like I could tussle with someone like Mance Broom who could tear me apart like very easily. But that's not animal strength though. How would you compare, like, what's animal strength feel like? For those of us who've never wrestled a bear before.
Especially a
That's
bear.
That's a different kind of strength.
It's a whole different deal. I mean, like you say, used to grapple a little bit. Dean Ludwig used to, was a wrestling coach, and even after he left, we'd come and work out together on a regular basis, and he was the toughest guy I ever ran into. I wrestled in high school. I wrestled Dave Porter, who was a 3-time state champ, and I didn't get in the way of that. And I wrestled some pretty good humans. There was nothing like this.
It's just a different kind of strength.
It's a different kind of strength. It was serious. Like I say, when I hit him the second time and I'm in there and he's kind of got his paws around me, I'm going, holy crap. There was no place to go.
You think about a big dog on a leash and how much they can pull you. That's a bear. That's a 7-foot bear.
That's like a
400-pound bear. Yeah. I can't even imagine. No.
Well, like I said, I used Mance Broom for the example. I can imagine like tying up with him and knowing how strong he is, like up here. And, how easy he can toss me around, but I just can't imagine what that kind of strength feels like.
Well, and there's another aspect of this too, because if you tussle with Mance Broom, occasionally Mance will shower. And so he's going to smell reasonably decent. I want to tell you, there's an animal smell too.
Oh, really?
Oh, my God. Oh, I'm in there. Oh, man. How do I get out of here? What do I do? It was an interesting experience.
Now, to my understanding, because I looked into this years ago, and my numbers could be off, and they probably are. Because I'm not as good as you are. You just did 100 plus 50 and came with 150. I'm not good like that. But from my understanding, this bear traveled for like 4 years. I think 2 people pinned this bear, him being one of them. That's what I was told that. Reliable.
And I've heard that. I don't know for sure.
But the video, no, you can go online and watch Victor the bear wrestle all these guys, and Victor just plays with those guys. So I can't imagine.
Reminds you of that scene from Semi-Pro. Remember when Will Ferrell's character Jackie Moon wrestles a bear in the ring? Remember that?
Yeah, I think if I'm not mistaken, I think that stunt man actually died. Not on the set, obviously, but like in rehearsal. There was like a different stunt man that actually died because that bear landed on him somehow, like crushed his larynx or throat or whatever.
I'm glad to hear that now rather than.
Well, yeah. But that could happen though.
It sure could.
7 foot tall. I didn't know that bear was 7 feet tall.
Yeah, he doesn't look as big there, but when he's up stretched out, he's serious business.
Oh, I couldn't imagine how big my ego would be if I pinned a bear in a wrestling match. Can you imagine that, the ego that I already have?
Well, yeah, because it takes some stones just to get in the ring with a bear, right?
I wouldn't do it. Well, I'll tell you what, before we get into the Q&A session that I wanted to do with everybody, I wanted to acknowledge something I've never talked to Coach about. And I wanted to thank him for something. This has nothing to do with football. And I tell you, man, I'll never forget in '94 when I got in that trouble in the classroom. Okay, something happened in the classroom. I was getting ready to get expelled. I just like crossed the line. And I went home, and I knew that was going to be my last day. This was my 11th grade year. This was I knew this was going to be my last day at Central. I thought I was going to get expelled. And for me at that time, going to like an alternative school or school of choice, that wasn't going to be in my option. I would have dropped out of school before I had done that. Well, because Mr. Eufinger is a good person and he cared about me, him, Mr. Hollick, Mr. Paraskis, the late Mr. Ireland, and a couple other guys were involved. They were able to, I don't know how you guys talk. I don't know who you talked to. I don't know how you fixed the situation, but I was actually able to go back. I didn't go back to school that year, but my dad was able to pick up my work assignments for the rest of the year. I did the rest of my schoolwork at home, and I was actually able to return to school for my senior year and graduate with my friends. And had you not done that, I don't know how things would have turned out. I certainly wouldn't be doing this right now, interviewing you, podcast, seeing these guys showing up, taking time out of their day. I never had a chance to thank you for that. And I really, really appreciate that. Everything you've done. You know, I was your service student when you were a teacher, and you used to buy me rallies all the time. Maybe that's why I liked your classes. I do have a confession to make. One time that you sent me to rallies, because I always brought the change back, I did take 89 cents of that and I bought an extra burger. So I did steal 89 cents, and I want to apologize for stealing from you.
Okay, well, let me see. The interest on the 89 cents. I'll figure that out at Luigi's later on.
You're going to get your bear money after all, Coach.
Yeah.
But, Coach, I'm really glad you came today. I'm glad to see all these people in there. This is really, just an honor to have you here. And I'm glad I got to tell you that. And another thing, and I told you this 8 years ago, that the incident that I got into, I seen him in 2002 at my elementary school. We had a 50th anniversary party, and he was taking pictures. I apologized to him. We talked for about 15 minutes. I never seen him after that, but I did apologize. I was wrong. I wish it would have happened. And I did tell you, you met us at Luigi's about 8 years ago. And I remember when I told you that, you told me how happy you were that I did that. I apologized to him. So that's going to conclude the podcast interview. And excuse me for being moved on that last part that I just said. I did the best that I could, but it was hard. But we're going to get into a Q&A session, or you can just, ask questions or, thank Coach or anything you want. Dan's going to adjust the microphone so people can come up and say something to Coach, and I'll let Dan handle it from here.
Yeah, and I'm going to kick this off by asking a question, Coach. So I've obviously talked to Ray, and I've talked to some of your other former players as well. And whenever they talk about each other, they always talk about each other in this very camaraderie sort of way, right? Whether they've made it to the NFL, whether they played in college, or whether they never played another snap after high school, they all hold each other in the same regard. Nobody's higher, nobody's less. To me, that reflects on a culture, right? And that culture is established by the coach. So when I hear that obviously that reflects on you and the culture you set as a coach. Could you speak to that first for a moment?
Sure. In my own situation, you deal with the experience you had, and I mentioned Dean Ludwig, and he was the ultimate team person. If you worked for Dean, if you did something, he acknowledged it. It didn't matter if you were, the maintenance guy or the assistant principal. He held you in the same regard. And, so that kind of stuck with me. And I go to my own personal career. You mentioned that I was at Central and I played, and I had a good career there. And so I get a scholarship and I go to Purdue. And, to kind of put it in perspective, at that point in time, they gave 35 scholarships a year. Okay. So, and I can't do that. Maybe I can. That's 140 scholarships over a 4-year period, right? And when I got there, they were just changing. They didn't have 2 platoon football at that point. They were all just rolling into that. And it did happen by the time that I left. But, you had, if you go back in the day, if you were the center, you were the linebacker. If you were a guard, you were the nose tackle. If you were the quarterback, you were a safety to keep you out of trouble. The offensive tight ends became defensive ends and all of that. So that's 11 guys that are starting both ways, and you got 140 on the team. The odds of starting are not very good. And the difference in terms of ability is usually pretty slim. And so I get to Purdue, and Jack Mullenkoff was the coach, and they liked the big, lineman. That's kind of what I was. Now, big is a relative concept. I was 230, 240. That was pretty good size back then. That'd be like a wide receiver now. But they changed they brought in another offensive line coach, and he wanted smaller, quicker guys. He wanted to do it, and quick was not my game. So I was a little bit challenged on the offensive side, and we had some first-round draft pick types who were on the defensive side. So I was working in that, backing up both ways and so on. I never started a game at Purdue, and spent a fair amount of time doing, demonstration teams and so on. When I played pretty well. I'm convinced that, in other circumstances, I could have had a pretty good career. And we ended up in my senior year, we went to the Rose Bowl, which we won. And we had
Was Bob Greasy the quarterback?
Bob Greasy was the quarterback, yes, and he was a great one. We could spend an hour talking about what a great guy he was. But he was the kind of guy too, he's the quarterback, he's the star, and yet he treated us all the same. So on that level, the peers in the locker room were good, coaches were good in that way. Kind of like Randy, I hung in there, see if I get a shot. And it never worked out exactly as I'd hoped. But I'll never forget that Ed Flanagan, who was a NFL center for the Lions for years, and Clanton King, who was a defensive lineman for us, who started in the Rose Bowl. I mean, these are, and I remember them saying at various times that they appreciated the challenge that I gave them as a player competing against them in practice, So here are guys who, are having great careers, who had enough sense to say to people, that it's I respect what you're doing for the team. And so when I got into this, it was important to me that I respect every player who has the guts to put on the uniform and try and give them a shot. That's so that. And I think that became part of our culture at Central.
What was the Purdue Notre Dame game like that?
Oh my God, they were challenges. There were a lot of challenges, but and generally it was kind of interesting. If we lost to Notre Dame, we had a good year in the Big Ten. If we beat Notre Dame, we must have thought like we were all of that because we didn't do as well. We had a couple of wars with Michigan State back then when they had their great teams.
George Webster years?
Yes, and some flat out wars, and we actually we beat Michigan. We had to travel to Michigan every year, and because they had 100,000 seats, even though they didn't fill them all, which apparently that was the deal, and. We beat them 4 years in a row, and I think the total differential in the 4 games was like 10 points. So there were some serious wars. So there were a lot of them, and we pretty well thumped Indiana most of the time. That's for Len Vasey, for those who didn't know.
No, back in those days, Michigan, Bump Elliott, who was their coach back then, he just passed away.
Yes.
I think it was like 10 or 12 days ago.
Right.
We lost him. But I want to get into the Q&A session, or if people want to get in line and take a turn and acknowledge Coach, now's the time. I would really love to hear what everybody has to say. So, and you're not obligated to, just whoever feels comfortable. So take your time. And like I said, if you guys got something you want to promote, fundraisers, or if you own a business, go ahead and let it be known.
I'm Coach Hurd. And the reason I think I wanted to go first was because first I want to say something about when you talked about William Wallace and Herb Washington. When I was in high school, I went to Jackson Parkside High School. And my senior year in high school, we had a track meet at Ypsilanti Huron Relay. And I happened to make it to the finals in the sprints. And I was lining up against a guy by the name of William Wallace, Willie Polk.
Oh, yeah. He was one of the 4.
And Herb Washington.
Wow.
Never heard of him before. So we got in the starting blocks, and it might have been the semis. And next thing I know, pow! And all I saw was cleats and butt. So who are these guys? And then I saw Northern, Central, Northwestern, Southwestern, and they were up there jumping around. I said to myself, damn, I'm at the wrong school. And the finals came, and those guys lined up in for the finals.
Yeah.
And next thing I know, pow! He jumped out. And Herb Washington set a world record.
Yeah.
And I'm like, no wonder, they were so fast. I said to myself, man, I think I'd like to live in Flint. I was 17 years old. And so I ended up being all-state, got recruited to Michigan, but didn't want to go there because Michigan State was a team, like Joe just said. And I saw Bump Elliott, met him, went there 3 times. Had no desire to go to Michigan, none. So I ended up going to the military. Went to the military, went to Vietnam, came home, went to college, GI Bill, got out, graduated. In '76, I decided I was going to move my family to Flint. And I did. And I saw the last Turkey Day game. That was my first time, going to Athens. And I saw you guys. And I didn't know who they were. And Mans was with you guys too. He's on the JV. The next day, yeah.
No. You've been kind of young then.
Yeah.
Were you?
That was
We didn't have
JV wasn't until what, 80?
86.
5, somewhere in there.
It was 86.
Yeah.
And I decided when I started teaching, I decided to coach football because a job opened at Central, a freshman football coaching job opened at Central. Joe, Ludwig, Clyde Bell, and Clyde Bell, I think that was it. And Mr. Ludwig hired me as a freshman coach who just started fresh football. So I coached my first 3 years with Mans. And we used to drive out of town all the time. And Mans told me that he tried to get a job. I'm talking about 86 now. He said he tried to get a job with J.B. Hunt and Snyder, trucking. And they wouldn't give him the job. Every time I was just on the highway last week, every time I see a Snyder and J.B. Hunt truck, I don't like them. Because what they did to Mans back then. Anyway, gotta say this real quick too, and I don't want to be up here to politics. Gotta say something about Randy.
Absolutely.
I had Randy first. And Randy always tried, always worked hard. He always was there. He never quit, but he never made it to the field. Sophomore year, he never made it to the field. Junior year, he didn't make it to the field. Senior year, Randy busted out. Bam! He's the center of I'm going to say this, Joe. I don't know for sure now because my sons are still arguing.
Yeah.
Of one of the greatest teams in football, Flint Central history.
So,
Now, I got to say this too. I had the opportunity to get all of the guys first. And every last one of those guys worked hard. I was able to come in and talk to Joe, Sam, and Bob about those guys. and tell them who was who and who was what. And I felt a little, you know, about that. But my biggest one was when I came in and told Joe and Sam and Bob that, man, this JV team I got, man, they're a special group. Didn't I tell you that? I said, man, these guys right here are a team is a great team. And Boo, did we lose one game or two? I think we lost just one to Pontiac, right? 7-6, and they stole it from us, right?
You had to wear the helmets when we left that game.
Yeah. And I think that was a great football team. And I think we ended up 8-1 or 7-2. Barely lost. And anyway, that team went on to be, I don't know if it's the greatest team because every time I had two sons, Keto and Rico Hurd, and both of them were on great football teams at Central. They could have won state championships, both of those teams. And every time we talk about it, we can't talk about it anymore because my wife has forbade us to talk about it. They get into an argument. Serious argument, which team was the best. Now, the 84 team is in there too, but I got to put Joe on the spot. Which team was the best?
Okay.
3 of them.
No, I'm going right back at you.
Okay.
You got 2 sons. Which one's the best?
I was just gonna say that's a similar question. Who's your favorite kid?
You will never get me to say that. Every team is like, my kids, and they're all great in their own way.
See, because these guys went out and got the statistics and.
I know I understand statistics and all of that.
You got one?
I understand all of that.
Sam got one.
Yeah.
You got one too, didn't you? Yeah. And you got one.
Yeah.
And they.
Yeah. That's why there's arguments. It's just
serious argument.
But I will not answer that question. Every one of those teams. Let me just throw one in. Okay. As I'm prepping for this because I was there for a long time. So I'm looking through all of these books, about the teams. Well, first off, the 76 team as the first team was very special. And you guys are very special. And obviously the 84 team, the 91 and the 93s, those are very special teams, and they had great moments, all of them. There's a team that I go back to, and it's kind of the Randy Scott sort of a thing, the 82 team. Nobody even remembers them. Okay, they went 6-3, and there's a little story with this, Sam. You might remember it. Our quarterback was a guy by the name of Kirk Timmons. I'm looking at the stats. He was a linebacker and a quarterback. Yeah. He completed 28% of his passes in the year. Okay, we had Ed Greer as our running back. Yeah. Ed was a stud. He was the team. Okay, and we all right. So and for one of the few times in history, we were not playing Northern even in the last game. We got up to Lansing Everett. Okay, now first off. I saw Tom Allward this morning. Tom was our JV coach. He scouted him. He told me how to get to the stadium. He lied. We got lost. We were a half hour late getting to the stadium. We could see the lights, but we couldn't get past the damn fence. It took us forever. We're going down these roads in these little neighborhoods, and finally we get there. So it's getting time for the game to start, and our guys are drifting out because they're trying to get dressed and whatever. We go out and we're having a pretty good game. We're kind of dominating for us. That's 14 points. We're up 14-0 late in the third quarter or early fourth. We're driving for a third score. And you said this, Sam. I don't know if you remember this. He says, Kirk hasn't thrown a touchdown pass a whole year. Should we try to get him? But I said, sure, because we got total control of the game. Well, he got a touchdown pass, but was to the wrong team. He runs the other way. It's 14-7. All of a sudden, we're in a dog fight. But we survived. But that was a team who made a lot out of, we had 2 or 3 guys who were very good. We had a lot of guys who were just junkyard dog types. That was a fun team too. So, they're all special.
Okay, I got something else. We, Joe, Bob, Sam, I, both were in Chrysler Arena. It was 500 people in there. It was packed. And what was his name? Sergeant Arthur Hill's coach. Yuri gets up on the microphone and he says to everybody in the building, he says, that team right there, that team was the best, mentioning our team, Flint Central. He had a video going on, and he said that team was the best team in the state that didn't win the state championship. You remember that?
Yep.
And we were sitting there, and we kind of got stuck and got stunned. They had just won the state championship. And we knew we were a better team than them because we had them down twice. They beat us twice. So we were like, and I was sitting there, I was like, damn. And then Joe says to me, he said, I wonder why he said that. You guys remember that?
Oh, yeah.
I've always wondered since that happened how you felt about him in that. Always wondered.
Well,
I wouldn't know how I would have responded to that.
Well, we all felt the frustration. I remember we were planning to head up to your place, right, Sam? And then we were going to go watch, Traverse City and scout, for the next game. And then, of course, we had to go home instead. And there was a tremendous amount of frustration. I'll say this, Jim Urick was a class act wherever he coached. And it was a tremendous honor to compete in the Saginaw Valley against guys like Jim Urick, because you knew, he was going to give you a hell of a shot, and we were going to do the same. And we had some wars when he was at Arthur Hill or at Bay City Western. So I appreciated that. I mean, it was a little shout out, a little respect to us, I think. And I appreciate it because he didn't have to do it, and he did.
Right. I guess we could have looked at that any kind of a way.
Yeah.
I didn't particularly care for it.
Yeah. Well,
Because I thought he was being a jerk.
no, and you wouldn't have known Jim like I did, because I met him many times trading films and in meetings and whatnot. He brought a history of being a real class act to that. So it didn't bother me at all.
Okay. I want to finish by saying I coached at Flint Central for 15 years. And I cherish and love the opportunity to coach at Central, to be there I had 2 sons that were pretty good football players.
Very good.
And I had the opportunity to coach people like these guys right here. Ran all 4 of them that are here. I don't think there's anybody else here. But Boo was my quarterback for 2 years in a row and went on to be one of the best quarterbacks and players.
Mm-hmm.
And didn't have a problem getting here when Ray called me. To just get this opportunity to tell you thank you. And thank you what you did for my boys. And the opportunity that you gave me to coach. Thank you very much.
I appreciate that.
All right.
That was my JV coach, Coach James Hurd. Real quick, since I was a member of that 93 team, I'm going to say this. I had Mike Fordham a couple weeks ago on the show. And as one of my topics, I wanted to honor the 91 team that he played on, that good team. Mm-hmm. Because Coach said that his sons, both of them, could have won a state title. And he was the other team he was talking about was that 91 team when Keto was the quarterback. Now, I wanted to honor the 91 team that day, but Mike kind of turned it into a competition thing. And we had fun with it the whole time. It was very, very fun.
You didn't have fun. I listened to that last night. You didn't have fun at the end when he gave the score.
72-7.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. but there was things said off camera. You know, I'd do this to him and then such and such. But I do remember one time. Now I knew that Mr. Eufinger wasn't going to answer that question. He never does, because I asked him that years ago. And here's what he said years ago. And once again, he didn't answer the question. I said, who's the best team you coach? And I just broke it down to 93 and 84. This is what he said. He gave both teams credit. He said 84 had probably had the most individual superstars, or they probably had more individual superstars than you had in 93, as far as like D1 talent and this and that. But he said in 93, he said, I've never had a team that came together as a team the way that you guys did. That was the way he answered that. He gave both teams credit. And then he acknowledged today, you know, the 82 team. So I told you that question was coming. I just didn't know who was going to ask it. But,
So Coach, one of our viewers watching, Mr. Controversy, has a question about the 96 team. He said the 96 varsity team had so much talent. He wants to know why you think they didn't kind of live up to that talent and perform the way their talent suggested.
You know, that's hard to answer. Things happen, and you know, I think there's this thing, momentum. That let me answer this by going back to the '93 team. You know how things get started, and talent is relative, right? I can have talent that looks really good, but if the other guy's talent is better, you may still not win. So and I can't remember what the other teams were like in '96 that we, you know, relative to us. But there are things that happen in games. There's sometimes, you know, the stars just align, and you know, and it could be, you know, what's a good call? A good call is a call that works, right? A bad call is a call that doesn't work. Now, why didn't it work? Because the quarterback underthrew the pass. The offensive lineman missed a block. It was there, but it wasn't there because, you know, and all of that happens. But in '93, Boo, you remember when we played Bay City Central on Saturday, second game of the year, and they're kicking our butts early, and we made some defensive adjustments, Bob. And
got rid of me.
Yeah. No, but we did. We made some adjustments and kind of stabilized things that way. But you remember the pass that D'Angelo caught? That pass that looked like a punt that you threw, and I don't know if you got hit or you were running, but it was an arc, right? That could have been intercepted. There are a lot of things that could have happened to that pass, but he caught it, and that was part of our comeback to win that game. So you win that game, and all of a sudden you've got that strange thing they call momentum that heads you in a positive direction. Well, sometimes momentum can head you in a different direction. And in terms of '96, it could have been a lot of things. It could be that you have teams where the talent's there, but they don't mesh quite as much. There may be an ego that gets a little out of whack. There could be a confidence issue. I don't know. So sometimes they underperform, and there was in that stretch really after '93. I had a fair amount of frustration for 2 or 3 years because I felt like we had more talent than we were showing. And part of that is coaching, part of that may be relationships, part of it may be bad luck. I don't know. But it was a frustrating period right there.
And Fred, Randy said that you did muff the snap that enabled him to score the touchdown. You put that on record. I'm just letting you know because you weren't here for that. So I want to let you know that.
Yeah.
And
Perfect.
and I don't think Mike was in the room either. He just came in here. Who was the greatest team you said when at your time at Central? Who was the greatest? I can't remember what you said. We tell Mike. Mike wasn't in here for that. Greatest varsity team at your time at Flint Central High School. Fordham didn't hear you. He wasn't in here.
He already knows because he's been through it with Tito and Rico.
Okay, okay.
He already knows.
1 year.
You know what it is, Mike. Yeah, you know Mike. Yeah, your senior year with Tito as your quarterback, and his year was with Rico.
Okay.
He was with Rico.
I can see that.
And it's a 3-1.
So that's the 91 team. But, when we had Vic and all them on the team when I was a junior.
You was junior.
Hey, don't change the man's opinion. He already spoke.
I'll take it. I'm winning.
We have Frank Nagy up here now.
Coach. So first off, I want to start by setting the record straight. We did score.
Oh, yeah,
Against
no
North
question. I know, I was never down.
Ball broke the plane. I had
Yeah.
possession. We scored.
Absolutely.
Conversation over.
Good.
All right. So just to kind of piggyback on something Dan said, you mentioned earlier, had the pleasure of being on your very first team. And I got to say, with due respect to your predecessors and the coaching staff that preceded you, the change in the staff was frankly probably the best thing that could have happened to the football program at Central, and frankly to me personally. Central had a losing tradition for quite some time prior to that, and you really turned the program around. Again, to the point that Dan made earlier, a lot of it was really about culture, and you brought more of a mentoring and frankly a genuine coaching style into the program, and it impacted everybody on the team and the coaching staff and the school, frankly. One of the things I remember is that early in the season, or during the preseason and even through the first couple of games, I personally was maybe hanging on to the ball a little too long on pass plays and probably, afraid, at least subconsciously, about being intercepted. And you told a Bob Greasy story. And just to paraphrase, maybe you remember the story and can retell it for us, but just to paraphrase, apparently Bob Greasy had a game in college where he had a very poor first half through, 4 interceptions? Five interceptions, and then went out in the second half and basically blew it out of the water and won the game. You remember that story?
I do. We were playing Illinois. And we're playing them at home, and we didn't start out very well, and we got worse as it went along, and a lot of it had to do with Bob. He kept throwing interceptions, and it actually went into the fourth quarter. And the thing that was amazing to me was the way he handled it. And the fifth interception that he threw, we were driving for a touchdown that would have put us ahead. And he throws a pass in the flat. And the guy from Illinois intercepted, went 102 yards for a touchdown.
Wow.
Yeah. And everybody in the place is going nuts. And Bob Greasy came off the field, sat down, got on the phone. He's talking to the guy. He did not show a piece of emotion. It was just, I'm still in this. I'm not hanging my head. I'm not crying. And in the fourth quarter, he went out through 2 touchdown passes. I mean, this is a guy who's thrown 5 interceptions. It's hard enough to throw a pass when you're confident, but he had to put him on the money, and he did, and we won the game. And it was a classic. Anybody can be all cool when everything's going well, but when the crap's hitting the fan, he did the job. That impressed me the most of anything I ever saw him do.
Well, I connected with that story, and it loosened me up for the rest of the season, and things turned out pretty well.
Yes,
so I appreciate you telling that. Now, what's interesting is that message became more compact as the season went by, and it turned into throw the damn ball.
Right, yeah, well, you only got 25 seconds. You got to get the play out. So.
Exactly.
Yeah.
All right. So on behalf of myself and the team of 76, thank you.
Well, thank you. Because you guys made go ahead, Dave.
Hold on, Coach.
Talk about it.
And I just have to say and echo what Frank just said, because it was really an honor and a privilege to play on your team that first year. And Frank is absolutely correct. The culture was down. We had kind of a losing tradition. It was not the best atmosphere to be playing football. But I understand now that changing the culture starts from the top down. You'll never take credit for it because that's just not your style, but you deserve credit for that. You really took a losing atmosphere and changed it into a winning atmosphere. And I don't know about Frank, but for me, it really impacted my entire life in terms of going from a loser to a winner, and it has stayed with me for the last 40 years, even through my career at General Motors or any of the other things I did. You have to have a winning attitude. So I just, again, want to reiterate what Frank said, even though Frank said he held on to the ball too long. That's just one of the things he didn't do right. Because he always threw it too high, and I keep telling him that you got to bring the ball down.
Right.
See, if I had to make it work for your living. But anyway, I just want to thank you, and all the acknowledgement and all the accolades that you get, you are so well deserving. So thank you again on behalf of the 76 team, because you really took us from an average team to winners. Thanks much.
Thank
All
you.
right.
Can I get a minute? Just to tag on to that. I was sort of on the top, but I wanted to wait. Bob was back. Bob Hollick, a Central grad. Sam Paraskas, a Central grad. Hope Hill, a Central grad. Mance Broom, a Central grad. James Hurd, a Central grad in his heart, and kids who are Central grad. That the family and the team, the group that worked together was special, and I was blessed to have assistant coaches who were outstanding, and I really appreciate the fact over a long period of time, Sam and Bob had plenty of opportunities to go off and do their thing someplace else, and they chose to stay with Central, and that says a lot too. And we had some interesting discussions in the coaches' room. I remember one time, I think you told me, Sam, it was one of the math teachers came down. I don't know why he was there, and we're having a fairly heated discussion around the chalkboard about what we should be doing, and he's leaving, and I think Sam was walking out with him. I don't remember who the guy was right now, but the guy turns to Sam and says, "Hey, do you guys like each other?" And he said, "Yeah, we like each other enough to tell the other one they're full of crap every once in a while, and get the job done." So it was a whole culture. Len Mazie was there this morning. So take a shower before I touch your body or whatever, and I'm going to tape you so tight that you feel like a mummy and that. But he loved you guys too, and that made a big difference. And I wanted to go back to the 76 team if I could for just a minute. We started out that year. We opened up at Flushing, and we literally kicked Flushing's butt everywhere but on the scoreboard. And it had to do with a couple of unfortunate plays. It also had to do with an interesting zebra who seemed to think that we snapped the ball 62 times from the line of scrimmage in that game. And our center snapped all 62 of those, right? And the only time that he illegally moved the ball prior to snapping it was inside the 10-yard line, 1st and goal, 3 times. Coincidence? I'm not so sure. And so we lose that game, and I remember as we're walking off, people saying, same old Central, you know, good enough to lose. Then the next week we played Northwestern, and we beat them pretty well. And then we go to Bay City Central. And this is, you know, you get down to games that are turning points. And he scored, despite what happened, despite the officials. Anyway, we start out, you know, Bay City's a tough place to play. They're a good football team. We're behind 14-0 before you know it. And we could have gone crazy. You know, Hollick probably did. And, you know, but the thing was, we tried to, you know, maintain the, rather than, God damn, you're losing this one, you lose it, and pokes and whatever. We're all right. Let's just get back on track. Let's do what we know we can do. And they score 14 in the second quarter, so we're tied at halftime. And then we come out, we hit a bomb for 76 yards, really 77, because he really did make it to the end zone. No question about it, but the jerk official didn't do that, didn't say that. So you scored, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
He set me up.
He set you up, yeah. And if you'd have thrown it just a little bit lower so he caught it in stride, he'd have made it without question. But that's another story. So anyway, we come back and win that game 21-20, and that changed everything, really. And that got us rolling, and they kept it up, and it was a great year for all of us.
Excellent. Steve Level's at the podium now.
Coach, good to see you.
Good to see you, bro.
See you every now and then at VG's.
Yeah,
So
absolutely.
you're looking well as always. I get to see Coach Holland, Coach P. You know, it's good to see everybody in here. You guys were talking about something, and it just made me think that, you know, for my years, I graduated in 1990, and the 89 or the 88-89 season, you guys as a coaching staff had to deal with the Southwestern Colts now becoming the Southwestern Knights, at which point we acquired some players. How difficult was that to deal with just trying to merge what you could to try to get, you know, the best team possible?
That's always a difficult thing. And it was, we had some other instances. There was one in particular that I'm not going to get into that was really difficult for us. But when a player comes in from another school who's an established player, and it always was a bit of a bother to me because, I mean, not bother's not the right word. I don't know, maybe come up with a word after I explain what I'm talking about. But I've got a young man who's been here since a freshman. And they've been working, and it looks like they're on track to get that spot. And they've done everything you've asked them to do to get there. And then all of a sudden, this guy comes in from the side, and now what do you do? And it's not fair to the kid who comes in, if he's better, that you don't play him. It's not great for the kid who thought he was going to play, who now isn't going to play as much. And that's a tough thing to do. And, you know, I think the only thing you can do, and it may not work, I mean, because the kids are going to deal with it in their own way. And we see that now. I think, you know, the transfer portal is a classic example of that now, where, you know, kid A moves in here, so kid B now transfers out or stays. And it's hard to say what's right, you know, but, you know, you just got to deal with each kid as best you can, hope they understand, and then they make a decision. Now, then we give you on the transfer portal. Joe Burrow was at Ohio State. He's probably going to win the Heisman at LSU. Was it good for him to move? Hell yeah.
Right.
You know, it worked out great for him. He's and you know, I don't think he has animosity toward Ohio State. I don't know. I've never talked to him, but I know he made the right move for himself. Peyton Ramsey, the quarterback at Indiana, gets beat out by a freshman. He's been playing for 2 years. You know, a lot of guys would have said, I'm out of here. He stayed. That kid gets hurt. He has a good year to finish. He had, you know, I mean, so he stayed and did it. Who knows what's right? You know, you as an individual, you have the right to control your own life and do what you want with it. And the best thing a coach can do is guide, or a parent or whomever, somebody you trust, and then, trust the person with the decision and hope they made it for the best for everybody.
And that's, I think you guys did a tremendous job, making that transition, because even though some of us may have known each other from different sports or just being around and everything like that, there could have been the animosity, and there wasn't. It was just everybody, for whatever reason, and mainly because, a football team, any team is going to reflect, the leadership, and coming from the head coach to your defensive coordinator, your offensive coordinator, and everything else. And I could see, when I think back on it, it was just us, towing the line and trying to get, accomplish what you guys set in front of us, and so I'm really appreciative of that. I also want to appreciate you. You gave me the first coaching job I had at Central, so that started me down the road, and, I want to thank you for that. It was really good to be able to come back and, just be alongside the Bear, so, and this time not getting, the demonstrations were terrible, because I don't know who was worse, you or Coach Holly, but you know what? The messages were, brought across, but you don't want somebody that's wrestling a bear, grabbing you up and showing you how to block somebody. Defensive lineman probably had it worse.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, he wasn't that old when he was coaching us. He wasn't that old yet.
but again, I want to thank you, Coach. I appreciate you.
I appreciate you.
Here comes Randy Scott to the podium.
How we doing, everybody?
Good, Randy. How you
Good,
doing?
Randy.
First of all, Ray, thanks for doing this. This is really cool. To see everybody here, all the coaches and everything.
Randy's the reason why I started my podcast, to be honest with you. I was doing audio podcasts at first, and Randy showed me how to do everything.
This is pretty legit, right? This is really
I don't
good.
know where this podcast is going to go in the future, but I'm never going to forget everything Randy taught me. Randy kind of encouraged me to do this, and I'm doing it. So that's who's at the podium now.
All right. Well, anyway, see about encouragement. This is a lot about football, but it's also about that other stuff. And you guys, I got to say that the lessons you guys teach stick with people, and it's way beyond football. What I got from this was, I got to play some games, which was awesome. But the support you guys gave me and everybody else, it really changes people's lives. I'm sure a lot of you guys can speak to that. But I'll give you a couple moments. One moment, it's just a little thing. I was, it's been documented here. I got beat up my first 3 years of football. I was no good. I had to go against Mike Fordham and Torrey Robinson. It was ugly. I was bad. And one day, my junior year, I'm walking down and I go by that coach's room. That coach's room, right?
Oh, yeah.
And they had this pegboard up there, kind of like that one. And it had like the depth chart, was like the depth chart thing on there, right? And I never even thought of myself as a starter. I wanted to play. I loved playing. But I saw the little pegs up there, and my name was in the starting center spot. It was maybe before the season even started. It was like in the summer. And that changed my life, because I felt that, wow, these guys believe that I could do this. I never thought it was going to happen. But from that moment I saw that little pegboard, I was like, wow, I can do something. I can accomplish stuff. And I really felt like you guys believed in me, and my locker room believed in me, and you guys were always had my back, and the coaches had my back. And so I was able to take that. And then after that moment, I would run through brick walls for you guys. That's all I wanted to do, right? I was like, oh my God, these guys believe I can play. I'm on that pegboard. And that moment changed my life. It really did. And after that, I took that into so many things in my career. And, I was, went to college. And I was a little kid from the East Side. I had to go to college. And I was with all these really smart people who had really good, I was like, I can do this. I got to start for Flint Central. I can do this, And I'm also a teacher now, and I always try to give my kids moments now that let them know that I believe that they can do this, because I know that changed the way I was. So I want to thank you guys all for that. It really made a huge difference in my life. And I got one more story too, and this is about winning and about teaching people how to win. Another moment that sticks out for me from the very first practice. We'd have to do up downs, and Otha would be out there getting us going in the mornings, whoever it might be. And I remember you guys making us do 13 up downs every day, because it took 13 wins to get to the state championship. And that gave me a mindset there too, because, I also didn't know how good we were, how good that team could be. But when you guys said that to us, that clicked to me too. I'm like, oh, they think we can win the state championship. We got to do 13 up downs every day. You know, I think that was during the 2-a-days times, but just giving us that mindset that we can accomplish stuff and how far we can go. You got that vision, and you guys were great at giving us that vision. So thank you guys. Thanks for everything.
Thank you. Either they got soft or we were screwing up more than you guys.
Well, we had to do other things too, but
You know, Randy is an Emmy Award winner, just so I don't know who knows that. Emmy Award winner. Wow. Randy has an Emmy Award.
Congratulations.
cool.
Now we got one of the real tough guys up here now, Matt's Broom.
Hey, I just want to thank Coach Eufinger and Holly, Coach Paraskis, and also for giving me an opportunity to coach at Central. My first opportunity to do that, but I guess just seeing in me, you know, as an offensive lineman, you know, when I remember the story. I don't know if you remember, but when I was a sophomore, I think you guys brought me up to the varsity practice, and Holly was trying me out as a linebacker, and I remember, I think Marty Conoco, he was rolling on a pass, and I'm zooming in on him, and all I could hear Holly saying, flats, the flats. I'm like, what's the flats? You know, get the flats, get the flats. He was trying to get me to drop back. And I guess that was my only opportunity at linebacker. I didn't drop in the flats, and then after that moment, I was all yours, you know, as an offensive lineman. But,
You don't know what a flat is, you move up.
yeah, right. But you know, I appreciate it. You know, you seeing in me, I guess, the ability to play offensive line, because I want to be a tight end. But,
Doesn't everybody?
yeah, and also just giving me the opportunity to, you know, run 48 pitch almost every other play, blocking for this guy, you know, which I love. But I just thank you for the opportunity that you've given me, that all you guys gave me at Central, and even thinking enough of me to present. You know, I had the opportunity to play in the first East-West High School All-Star game, and you know, you've seen enough of me to be able to play in that. But and the coach with Herb and Otha Hill, and you know, I really didn't appreciate or see the I guess the culture, you know, in going to Central, because when I was coming out of the ninth grade, they changed the boundaries, and we were all supposed to be going to Southwestern. But I'm just so glad that I had the opportunity, the experience of going to Central, you know, and then just the heritage of it. I think after the school closes, really hit me, just the heritage of Central, you know, and just the richness that was there. So I just want to thank you for that. Thank all you guys. You know, I love y'all, and just thank you.
Right.
I want to note that he said that guy, it's Pat Cavett, was a running back, who was one of the best running backs we had. Tyrus Fowler in the back, and I don't know if we've mentioned you at any point today. And but you know, thank you guys, because you made us look a hell of a lot smarter than we really are. Because you know, you can run fast and play. Well, yeah, except for Alec, who was the smartest and most humble guy I ever met.
Speaking of that, Bob Hollick. First of all, I'd like to thank you guys. First of all, because when I walked in, I felt like I was in the Atwood Stadium. You know, we're in the box, and all of a sudden I said, breakdown came to me, and I'm going, I'm going to say this, and nobody's going to say anything. They're going to go, what the hell is wrong with that guy? What? And I said, breakdown. And everybody went, right away. I'm going, holy mackerel. We did train you. Whatever. Joe, I never did wrestle a bear, but I did date a girl from Northern one time. It was very similar to that. You know, when I hit her breath was bad and all that, you know, whatever. So, hey, you know, there was some similarities there, without question.
A little there can clear up a lot of problems.
And don't forget, instead of you thanking us thanking you, you ought to thank me.
I should.
For your
my
homecoming senior year, which I
yeah.
saved playing a quarterback, and I won't get into that story. You know,
He was,
a quarterback. You forget those practices, I can throw it. You know, whatever. Tiny Laster and All Stater beat me out my senior year, whatever. But anyway, a couple things, you know, just again, talking about our staff, and I talked to a lot of people because I stayed in the Flint scene for a long time and baseball programs and whatever in the Flint area. And we had such a special, unique situation. And I think I'm getting the gist that you guys talk about that too. And I heard Jimmy talking about it. I see all of us guys. Even though, some of my best friends are guys from Northern, whatever. I mean, we wanted to beat each other. We wanted to play and coach against each other, the Northern coaching staff, whatever. But when it was all said and done, we were all friends. We were kind of all of a circular family for the most part. And I've seen that, throughout my coaching experience, throughout being in Flint, playing here, and coming back. Just a tremendous time that we were all at, and you guys were a part of that.
Tell them what we do on Friday night.
Wow, let's not get not go. I know what you might have done. But when I look at our staff, the staff that coached many of you, we once Al Sigmund went on and Joe got the head football job. We all had a personality. We all had a role. Joe being, of course, the head coach. Sam, I think Dean Howell mentioned, was kind of the brain or the master behind all of it. I was kind of the spirit guy. Jack Ewing, you remember Jack? Jack was kind of the fatherly thing. Hey, well, come on, let me talk. We each had a kind of little bit of a role that we all, every little piece that kind of fit together, and you could see that just not among ourselves, but the other coaching staffs from Bay City Central, the other coaching staffs from Midland. They, and I hate to say this, but I think they all highly respected us. Not only because, we were competent enough to get you guys ready and have, well-coached athletes, but we knew what we were doing, but yet, we had fun. When it was over with, it was pretty much over. And we had fun doing it. And, we interacted with them fine. So it was really a special time. And I won't ever forget it. The greatest thing that I could ever say was, like Joe alluded to a little while ago, how many schools have just about every friggin' coach in basketball, Stan Gooch, and in any of the other sports, many of us were Flint Central High School graduates. Do you see that now? When you're coaching, I see Freddie, thank you for coaching at Flint. That makes me feel proud that you're giving it back. All of our guys are giving it back, Andre, etc. That makes me feel proud, but that's what it should be like. We should be having everybody at Central, we're Central athletes. We're Central alumni, and passing it on, whatever. But those were great times, and you guys many of you were a part of that, and some of you are passing it on now, even though it's different times, unfortunately. I hate to say that. You got coaches, I see they're coming from, everybody's a coach now, this parent, that parent, and, when you get into parents, I'm sorry to say, it's a little bit of trouble right there, these days. But I think we had some great times. We had some great leaders around us with Jack, with, of course, Dean Ludwig, Fred Ireland, who passed away this year. I didn't know if you guys knew that. Just a great group of guys, and I want to thank you all, and thank you, buddy. And we're still seeing each other and still hanging out. All right, whatever.
Thanks, Coach. Tyrus, come on, Tyrus. I want you to come up here. Say, because I got something to say about you. Come up here and say something.
I always sit in the back. I duck off in the back, so I don't even know. Yes, sir.
Go ahead, Tyrus. This is a guy here. I told Dan this earlier. I'm not sure if I've told you this before, but out of all the sports that I've ever played, softball, football, basketball, whatever the sport may be, from youth to adulthood, I remember practicing against Tyrus all the time. Tyrus was the only person ever in life I was ever physically afraid of. I was afraid of you. I didn't show it. Yeah, you wouldn't know it because I didn't show it. But I was actually afraid of you. We were talking one time. You guys know who Sean Banks is, right? Got all these questions that he asked 100 times over. Well, he's always asking let's have a draft. Who are you going to draft first? I always say you, because you have to be on my team. I don't want to play against you in a game.
Well, I appreciate that.
Okay? All these guys are tough in here. I've said a dozen times how tough Mance is. Randy and Glenn and all them, Fred, and everybody in here. But yeah, you were the guy I was physically afraid of. I'm just glad you didn't know that, because I didn't show it to you.
We used to hang out all the time.
I know.
Like,
That's because you like me, because I was nice to you.
that you hang out with all the time.
I know, but I've always wanted to tell you that.
Well, I appreciate it, but I don't appreciate it.
What's bad about that?
I appreciate it, but
You're a nice guy.
Nice guy.
But I would like to say, thank you, Coach. All Central, all your Central people, man, I love y'all. This was like the most family I've had. Like, all my brothers was older than me, so I didn't really have too much family, you know what I'm saying? But, y'all was like my family, man. That camaraderie that we had, just every day, the tour days, they don't want to let you get no water. No, you can't drink no water. We went through a struggle there. But I would like to also thank Coach Hurt and Coach Hill, because y'all got us ready to go to varsity. And, what y'all did and what y'all instilled in us, it still, illuminates with us today. And I appreciate that. I really do, because y'all got us ready to go to them. And you always told it like it was. You never sugarcoated anything. He got your butt. If reindeers, come on, this is the king of reindeers. You talking about Santa. King of reindeers here. You mess up, you running full speed and just fall. But I like to thank y'all for getting us ready for the world, man. I appreciate it. And thank you, Coach Eufinger, Paraskis, Holly, all y'all. I appreciate you all. Thank you.
Thank you. I appreciate you. There's somebody I want to acknowledge today. Chuck Lawler, I want to acknowledge. Chuck, just stand up for a second. You don't have to come to the mic. You don't want to. You just stand up. I want to say something about Chuck. Chuck is a Northern graduate, graduated in 1988. He runs the Flint Fury football team. He does all kinds of stuff for them, not just football. He's always in the community, helping people, giving back. He's another guy that's giving back, the way that you're supposed to. And we got an interesting history just one time.
One time.
I didn't, 2012, I see Steve over there laughing.
It's because you were naked.
Here's what happened. And if I mess up, just let me know if I messed up.
Of course.
Chuck's older than I am. Chuck's, 88, he's 7 years older than I am. We played in the first annual turkey game that Eleazar brought back in 2012, Central Northern Turkey Day game. Steve was our coach on the Central team, and Chuck played with the Northern guys. I didn't know Chuck at the time, okay? Now, leading up to that game, they had done that game a couple times, but this game here was more personal because people were saying personal stuff, attacking each other online, the Central guys in the North. I mean, they were saying, like, stuff. I'm not saying he was saying that, but other guys were, and I probably was too. Now, I was matched up against Chuck. And I always tell people that that's probably the best game that I ever played against, because him and I, every single play, it looked like we were going to get into a fist fight. I mean, like the first play of the game, I accidentally thumbed him in the eye or something like that. Now, he's strong too. Like what I said, Mance was. He did something to me. We were arguing and we were pushing and shoving. He grabbed me by my shirt. He went backwards. He yanked me down. And I went face first, like really, really, really hard. And I jumped up, put my hat back on. I said, all right. I said, I'm coming at you. We just went it. I guess what I'm trying to say is Chuck and I that day played the game the way that it's supposed to be played. That's the way we were taught to play, on the line of scrimmage. There was no dirty plays. I mean, we might have been using tactics that maybe people thought were dirty. But Chuck, am I lying? I mean, these were two alpha dogs going to as hard as they can. There was elbows thrown in the face. We didn't care that it was a charity game. Okay, I love Chuck. Man. I learned a lot. He licked me a couple times, face first, and
What did your shirt look like afterwards?
My shirt or my neck when he put in those sleeper holes. No.
Not
Chuck,
illegal unless it's called. Not illegal unless it's called.
Chuck, like I said, Chuck's a Northern guy. He was nice enough to come here, take time out of his day, doing great things with the Fury program. And man, I just wish you all the blessings. Thank you for all you do for the community in Flint.
Appreciate it.
And I really appreciate you coming here today.
Well, Coach led the way. He was one of the persons that led the way. So I appreciate what Coach did too. So.
Okay. Thanks a lot, Chuck. Thanks a lot, Chuck. That's my man right there.
All right.
You know, in terms of just kind of tie into what you said and what Bob was talking about, you know, Randy Johnson, who has passed away, he and I got head jobs at the same time. And, you know, and we had our moments where we kind of controlled the situation, and you guys had moments where you definitely controlled the situation. You kicked our ass a few times. And, but, you know, the guys at Northern, the coaches, we always had a tremendous amount of respect for one another. And it was a war, but, you know, it was, there were never any real cheap shots. It was just, well, maybe one or two, but, you know, in terms of the coaches, you know, you knew that we knew we were going to get Northern's best shot, and we were going to give our best shot back. And it was a great rivalry, and I'm just sad that the two schools are now closed.
Is there anyone else that would want to come up here? Anyone?
All right.
Okay.
Yeah, we're going on 2 hours here, so we're going to wrap this up.
Okay. Well, I have a surprise.
One more comment from our online viewers, and then we'll
Okay.
get to that.
Okay.
And it's from Laura Wilder. So I'm assuming is your daughter.
Yes.
She has a memory about the 100th game and how the players tried to put you on their shoulders, but didn't quite get it done.
Right.
Just share the memory of that real quick.
Well, yeah, that was against Bay City Central. That happened to be the game we talked about. Yeah, it was the 100th win. And early on, I was thinking, well, maybe next week. But we did get that, and you know, that's been part of my problem. You know, you're gonna lift me on your shoulders. Well, it didn't work so well. And you know, I've run into that a lot in my life. I go someplace, zip line. Well, what's the weight limit? Well, I'm not doing that. Or you want to ride a donkey down into the Grand Canyon? Forget that. You got to carry the damn donkey because it's too big. So, you know, I know that, you know, in a you know, an emotional way they pick me up, but in a physical way they pick me up.
One more acknowledgement. I also want to thank my Uncle Jesse Ascencio for coming here today. He's a high school classmate of Mr. Eufinger, class of 1963. So through him and my Uncle Bird and my dad, I knew a lot about the Central tradition before I went to school there. And, you know, I know my uncle, you know, hasn't been feeling well, but he was, you know, nice enough to come here. I really, really appreciate that. It meant a lot for you to come here, Uncle. I love you for coming here, man. Thank you for coming here.
It was great to see you, and you know, and Jesse and Atwood Stadium were tied together for a long, long time. He was the man down there whenever we went down. So it was always great to see you, brother.
Okay.
You know, that job, and then I had the job at Whaley. I had you, at Atwood, I had Bob at Whaley, with some of the big teams, and Margarita Chelbo with all her girls. You three, I want to say thanks for the memories.
Well, thank you. Thank you.
Thanks, son. Okay. Are we ready, Dan?
Yeah.
All right. I'm going to need Coach Hurd just to come up here and join. You don't have to say anything. Just come up here. Coach Hill, need you up here. Coach Hollett, need you up here too. Coach Proskus. Just need you to stand up. Just need you to stand up here. Mr. Eufinger knows what's going on. Okay, listen, here we go. There we go. Coach.
Yeah.
This is your 2019 Flint Central team, okay? I know this is your last year of coaching. You're going to retire. We're 12-0 right now, okay? We fought hard, we scratched and clawed, we did everything we could. And we have Warren De La Salle waiting for us out there, okay? We got kickoff in an hour. And we need you to address us one more time on what we need to do. Are we ready? We need you to address the team. And I'm going to come over here and join my team. And we need another motivational speech.
Let me go over here and join these guys.
I don't know if I got the heart for this.
You told me I had to do this. I don't know. We'll see.
Paper towel. Randy, who else?
Randy, the paper towel guy. All right. Nice job, Randy. All right. You know, it would have been wonderful if we'd have had the opportunity to do this. We got really close a couple times and it didn't quite happen. So if it had happened, you know, picture ourselves, I guess, now down at Ford Field, it would be, and having a chance to do what Davison just did. And I guess I would start out by saying, you know, we started out, and maybe I need to.
No, go ahead. Just do it how you want. Do it how you want, Coach.
We started out after the 2018 season, which didn't end up quite the way we wanted to. We got close, but we didn't get there. But we got back in the weight room. We started running. We started working. We started lifting. We started paying the price in order to get better. The coaches went to meetings. We fine-tuned the offense and the defense. We got things together. We got Fred Ireland to get us new uniforms. We broke the microphone. We did it all. And you guys have paid the price. And there have been challenges along the way. And it hasn't ever been easy. You know, if you're going to beat Midland, it's not easy. Everything is not going to go your way. But you got to rise up from that problem that you had on the last play and make the next play right. We're going out there against Warren De La Salle, one of the best teams in the state. And they have established tradition. We have a tradition. We're going to improve our tradition this afternoon on the Ford Field. And we're going to have my double quarterbacks, my fast one and my strong arm one are going to be ready to go after it. I got a running back that is ready to do it. I got a receiver that is going to get all the way to the end zone this time. No question about it. He is going to fly all the way. I got that transfer from Northern who knew it was time to get together with a real program in the Indians, and he is going to line up with Ascencio, and we're going to rock him. And Randy Scott is going to start it all with a snap, and Glenn Griffiths is going to be there. Tyrus Fowler will not let them get around the edge, and Steve Levels is going to put all those blood drills that he and Howard did together into a winning program. We are going to win the first state championship that Flint Central has had in football since 1958 when Pat Cavett goes over the goal line with no time left. We are going to get the job done. Let's go out there and see those guys. You guys ready? Get the heart to shoot. All right. Yeah. Oh, we're not done yet. We're not done yet. Oh, that's right. It's time. Give me a C. C. Give me an E. E. Give me an A. A. Give me a T. T. Give me an R. R. Give me an A. A.